Hi, I'm Michelle and welcome back to Somewhere in Bookland. This is my May 2018 wrap-up. I managed to read 6 books in the month of May, 2 of which were physical copies, the other 4 were ebook copies. I had 0 1-star reads, 0 2-star reads, 3 3-star reads, and 4 4-star reads, and 0 5-star reads. The first book that I read in the month of May was Listen to Your Heart by Casey West. This book follows Kate, who joins her high school's podcast at the request of her best friend, Alana. Kate ends up being cast as one of the hosts of the podcast, and that is completely against everything that she knows about herself and that she feels like she's comfortable with. Then the podcast starts getting this call from an anonymous guy, and Kate and Alana think that it is this guy Diego that Alana is crushing on, and so they try to hook Alana and Diego up. I really enjoyed this book. I gave this book 4 stars. I liked Kate's character, and I like how she grows throughout this book and becomes more comfortable with who she is and more sure of herself. I also really like the character of Diego and how he was so supportive of everybody and he was working through his own stuff at the same time. I also liked the element of the podcasts in general because I've been really into podcasts lately. So overall, this was a really cute summer read and I give it 4 stars. The next book I read was Royals by Rachel Hawkins, and this follows this girl Daisy whose older sister is getting married to the Crown Prince of Scotland, and she has to go and stay the summer over there so they can keep kind of like a tight eye on her because her ex-boyfriend is just like trying to put her face all in the news and sell information about her and stuff. Now, the prince has a younger brother who has a group of friends, and they all like to get into trouble and cause problems, and they're really intent on roping Daisy into it with them. I read this book because I was starting to get a little bit of royal fever thanks to the royal wedding, and I wanted to read a book with royalty in it, and I enjoyed this book. I gave this book 3 stars. It was a little over the top sometimes and was reality show-esque. I felt like I was binging a reality TV show or watching a reality TV show while reading this book. And this book was more about the characters and the plot because there really wasn't a plot except that her sister was getting married. And it might have had a slightly higher rating if I didn't feel like the ending was so rushed. I kind of wanted a little more on the ending than what we were given. So it was a little bit of a letdown. But yes, this book was 3 stars. The next book I read was an arc provided by NetGalley in exchange for an honest review, and that is My So-Called Bollywood Life by Nisha Sharma, and I gave this book 4 stars. This book follows Winnie. This book follows Winnie, who's recently broken up with her boyfriend Raj, who she believed was her soulmate because she was given a prediction when she was younger, well, when she was born, that she would meet the love of her life before her 18th birthday. His name would start with an R and he would give her a silver bracelet. But that's all before he ends up hooking up with this other girl. So Winnie is really into film, and specifically she loves Bollywood films, and she's part of the film club and hosting a student film festival with her film club, and she's really hoping that that'll help on her film school applications. And through the film club she becomes friends with this guy Dev, who she starts finding herself falling for, but is realizing that he doesn't meet any of the qualifications for her prediction, and she's kind of not sure if she even wants to follow that. She feels like she doesn't have a say in her life because of this prediction that was given to her. So she's really confused in this book. She doesn't know if she should follow her heart or if she should follow her destiny, and I really liked her arc in this book. I feel like she finally comes to terms with who she is and what she wants for her life, and I feel like she finally accepts her destiny and puts it together with the idea of feeling if she's actually in control of her life or if everything was predetermined for her. And Raj, I did not like Raj. I liked Dev, I really did like Dev, but Raj, he was just so detestable in this book. He proclaims to love Winnie, but proceeds to act contrary to that statement at every turn. And so I really didn't like him in this book, but I liked the book overall and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read in the month of April was The Kissing Booth by Beth Reekles, and I gave this book a 3 stars. This book is about this girl, Elle, and her best friend, Lee, and her best friend's older brother, Noah. So Elle and Lee are running a kissing booth at their school's carnival, and it's there that Elle and Noah kiss. They end up starting up a relationship, but they have to keep it from her best friend, Lee. Now, I gave this book a 3 stars. I picked up this book because I watched the Netflix movie and I thought it was so cute. It's like one of those cute teen rom-com movies. But I felt like the movie glossed over Noah and Elle's relationship a little bit too much. They were kind of just like there in the relationship. But I wanted a little more time seeing the relationship develop. So once I found out it was a book, I decided to pick up the book. And while I feel like the book might have given me more of that Elle and Noah relationship that I was wanting, I feel like it didn't really go into as much of the Lee and Elle relationship. And I felt like that was severely lacking from this book. I feel like the movie portrayed their friendship better, as well as providing a reason why Elle and Noah were keeping their relationship from Lee in the first place. In the movie, there are rules, and one of those rules is that Noah is off limits considering he is Lee's brother. In the book, there are no such rules, and thus the fact that they're keeping their relationship from Lee just kind of seems like there's no reason why they're keeping it from him. So them hiding it doesn't seem quite as plausible. So yes, this book was a 3 stars. This next book that I read was Furyborne by Claire Legrand, and I gave this book a 4 stars. This book follows 2 girls, Riel and Elena, and it jumps between their perspectives, one of whom is a Sun Queen, one of whom is a Blood Queen. The Sun Queen's the person who's going to save the kingdom, the Blood Queen's the person who's going to bring the kingdom crashing down. And I found it interesting. I love seeing the trials that Riel has to go through. I love seeing Elena just kind of like kicking butt and taking names. So this book jumps between perspectives, and during each shift in perspective, it also shifts like 1,000 years in time. And I feel like as each chapter shifts between the one perspective to the other, there's always something, a little hook that keeps you interested in that character's chapter and makes you want to come back to it, which I really appreciated, because usually when books jump perspective like this and they're not connected and they're both telling their own separate stories, I usually find one person's story more interesting than the other and find myself slugging through the one I don't find as interesting just until I can get to the other person's story that I want to read, or I'll find myself skipping the story I don't want to read until it comes to a point where I go back and read like a whole bunch of their chapters. And in this book, I didn't feel that. I felt invested both in the story I was reading at the time, but also excited to get back to the other story. There is a point in this book where I feel like it starts to slow down a little bit, but it doesn't take very long for it to start picking back up, and I appreciate that, because I don't like when books go slow down and then they stay there for a while, because then it kind of pulls you out of the book. Now, to say this book is action-packed would be kind of an understatement. It is full of action. There's so much going on at all times in this book, and I really found that interesting and intriguing because, like I said, it kept me involved with the story. Now, I did knock it down a star because I felt like there could have been a little bit more character building and or world building in this book, but I do realize it is the first book in a series and that we will probably get more of that in the second book, I'm hoping. Another reason I had knocked it down also was because I had heard that there was bi rep in this book, and that piqued my interest. But I feel like Elena mentions being with a girl in the past, but then it is never brought up or mentioned again. So in reality, hearing that it had bi rep was really just kind of a tease. I'm hoping that in the series it goes more into like mentioning that, but if that's just what it mentions in the whole series, and that really is just kind of a letdown. So yes, I have my fingers crossed for more bi rep in the sequels and more character building in the sequels, and I will definitely keep reading it. The last book I read in the month of May was A Date with Darcy by Tiffany Schmidt. I gave this book a 3 stars. This book follows Marilee, who thinks that bookish boyfriends are better than real boys, and she starts going to this new school, and there she meets this teacher who assigns her a book, and she kind of feels like she is the character in the book. And originally she is comparing her life to Romeo and Juliet, but then it switches and it starts being compared to Pride and Prejudice. And if you've read Pride and Prejudice or seen Pride and Prejudice, you kind of get the gist of where this book is going. I have never read Pride and Prejudice, but I have seen the Keira Knightley film and I love it. It is one of my favorite films. So going into it, knowing that this was a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, I was excited and also hesitant at the same time. There's something with retellings, I really enjoy retellings, but I like it when it references the main stuff, but doesn't necessarily say it scene for scene. And I felt like this book got a little bit into the whole scene for scene thing, where it was just so much like the original story that they could have changed stuff up a little bit. And I feel like if it would have done that, if it would have changed things up a little bit without following it so strictly, but still followed the format of Pride and Prejudice, that I would have enjoyed this book more. But as it is, I gave it a 3 stars. Those are the 6 books I read in the month of May. If you liked this video, click the like button below. If you want to see more of this face in your feed, click the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys later.